said that the president himself had refused to sign some three bills that Francis Xavier Suzu sponsored, and also that president was refusing to release monies under the district assembly's common fund. So nearing 2 hours to the original scheduled time for the address to begin, the address beginning was it. In fact, you could see the diplomatic community in some sort of, they were really surprised. What was going on? What is going to happen? And then at some point, the NDC MPs were around, but they were not in the chamber. Some of them were in the coffee shop, lurching around. And then John Mahama goes out, talks to them every now and then, comes back, take his seat, talks to Julius Debra, goes back together with the national chairman. Then he comes in together with the minority leader. Then all the NDC MPs now come to take their seat. And the information we pick now is that John Mahama said this is a national event. Despite the grievances they may have, they need to really show up so that the president can deliver his address. Of course, without them, the president could have still gone on, but it would have been a spectacle. But also, because we're talking about John Mahama, when he was introduced by the Speaker of Parliament, NDC MPs were on their feet singing, "We are there, GM Beba." And then there were NPP MPs who also decided that they'll call him Dead Goat. That also led to some delay of almost 20 minutes because each side were taking their turns to chant.
We have His Excellency John Dramani Mahama.
So that's both the minority and the majority in that chance, JMBB and then the Dead Goats and all that. But really, we then settled for the address itself. We've been hearing portions of that address. You've been giving us that wrap. But let's talk about the leaders, their responses after the president had concluded his address.
So therefore, we are getting a foreshadow of the debate. The debate is expected to start on Thursday. And today something also dramatic happened. Ordinarily, when the address closes, it is the minority leader who will move the motion for adjournment. But the Speaker of Parliament also did something that probably caught the majority leader off guard and tricked him a bit. He asked him, what are we doing next? Normally, that question will go to the minority leader who will move the motion and then make some comments. The majority leader always has the last word on these matters. But today, Afenyo Maki, the new majority leader, had the first word, talking about how they were ready for the debate. He has read all the budget and the State of the Nation address that John Mahama had presented. They were just of lamentations. And then Atufonso also come in and talk about what he says is the biggest national issue now, employment issue. And he said the president has failed to tackle it and talks about the appointment of Ken Oforiatta. He says now we have a domestic finance minister and we have a minister of finance abroad.
We are down, but we rise again under the able leadership he is providing and the future which is assured. Mr. Speaker, we are by the practice of this House ready to debate Mr. President's message. Considering the situation we find ourselves as a country, Mr. Speaker, we are ready to debate this message now. However, Mr. Speaker, as has been the practice, members would want to prepare. And I noticed that the minority leader was jotting down a lot of notes. I need to remind him that I have with me the 2014, 2013, and the 2016 State of the Nation address. And all of these were full of lamentations. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't know what he was actually jotting down. But if it was a debate he was preparing for, Mr. Speaker, I want to assure him that we will face him with this optimism and remind him of the lamentations of 2013, 2014, 2015, and 2016.
Mr. Speaker, the Hansard will record me today. Mr. Speaker, the unemployment situation in our country is at a critical point.
Yet, we did not hear a word from our president on this matter. Mr. Speaker, out of 33 million population, only 11.3 million are employed. This number includes peasant farmers. Mr. Speaker, the difference between the 33 million and 11.3 million is what I call ninja. No income, no jobs, no assets. I am shocked to the marrow to have noticed that our president, following the recent ministerial reshuffle, has increased the size of his government. Mr. Speaker, today we have a Minister of Finance domestic and a Minister of Finance international.
That's the minority leader, Dr. Kesa Latofos. And earlier you heard the majority leader, Alexander Afenyo-Marking. There's a number of reactions I'm seeing on our WhatsApp console. We'll go through them. But some Ghanaians in Kumasi have expressed dissatisfaction with the government performance in various sectors of the economy. Some of them we interacted with on the streets of Kumasi believe his address failed to touch on their key concerns.
He hasn't been able to meet my expectations. I was expecting more from him. Yes, as a leader, once challenges comes, we expect you to live up to expectation, right? And unfortunately, it has always been more of the complaints, allowing the factors to external shocks and all those things. But I think that's why you are elected as a leader. So we expect you to come up with innovative ideas and drive us out of this economic situation.
But the last year of the president is a crucial one because it's an election year, and you think that even as an election year, as a crucial election year, he hasn't done much.
Well, we are here to see. Personally, I'm here to see that, and I think once they are trying to break the eight, which historically hasn't been done before, I expect a lot of things to be done.
Well, my general expectations of the government has not been met. I must be very honest with you. And I don't think the NPP, the government itself, they know that they have not met expectations. Looking at the way they are trying to shield people from the perceived or the economic mess, that the way people are trying to hide or run away from it. Looking at the vice president saying his role is just an advisory, and then his role is not constitutionally stipulated. If things were going on that well, I don't think they'll be making these excuses. The current state or the current affairs in parliament should tell you that they themselves, they know that they have not met the expectations of Ghanaians, because Ghanaians voted for them expecting. We had so much expectation in the president, to be very honest, and then we expected the president to, if not take us there, at least solve majority of our problems. But then this is the case. We got saddled with a lot of taxes, some sanitary power tax, the e-levy, a lot of taxes that people like that was overburdening the citizens.
Being a listening government comes with being proactive. You have to be proactive. When Ghanaians are asking for things to be done at a specific time, you do it at that time. But when you wait until when you feel like doing it, that is when you are not going to be rightly tagged as a listening government, but a government who feels like this is the time I want to do what I want to do.
To say it's on its right path will be relative. What am I comparing it to? Am I comparing it to some 2 years ago? Am I comparing it to 4 years ago, 5 years, 6 years ago? It will depend on what I'm comparing the current state of the nation to, and then I will say it is on the right. If I'm comparing it to President Akufo-Addo's first term, I won't say it is on its right path, because his first 4 years was good, very good than the last 4 years. And of course, the president has made mention of the impacts that Ghanaians have had, and all over the world. We've had impacts, COVID, and then, as usual, Russia and Korea war, Russia-Ukraine war, sorry. We've had all these indicators, but what is the way forward? Are we still stuck with the Russia-Ukraine war and COVID impacts as at now?
Well, some thoughts on the streets of Kumasi, some engagement there with my colleague Nana Boachi Dankwa Adom. Well, you heard the majority leader in his closing remarks. He talks about the fact that we have a domestic finance minister and a foreign finance minister. You've been hearing reactions following that appointment of Ken Ofori-Atta. Now, the president says he's confident the removal of the former finance minister Ken Ofori-Atta will not affect government's engagement with the International Monetary Fund to restore economic growth. Well, his comments come closely on the heels of renewed calls for stalwarts from his party to remove his cousin as Ghana's special envoy on international finance and private sector investment. Well, he touched on this issue during his State of the Nation address. Listen.
Mr. Speaker, it is important to underline that the recent change in the leadership of the Finance Ministry will not affect government's commitment to implementing the terms agreed with the IMF to ensure that we restore the economy to healthy growth as soon as possible. Indeed, the macro economy was much stronger at the end of 2023 than in 2022. Inflation, which peaked at 54.4% in December 2022, has reduced to 23.5% in January 2025. Real GDP growth for the first 3 quarters of 2023 averaged 2.8%, higher than the targeted growth rate of 1.5% for 2023. The CD has been largely stable since February 2023, with a cumulative depreciation of 9% between February and December 2023. Gross international reserves reflected a significant buildup of a 5.9 billion United States dollars, enough to cover 2.7 months of import of goods and services. The current account turned positive at 1.4% of GDP at the end of September 2023, from negative 2.1% at the end of December 2022. Generally, the macroeconomic indicators are once again all pointing in the right direction.
Well, as a country, do we really need a special envoy on international finance and private sector investment when we have a finance minister? Well, IMF's Julie Kozak promised to continue talks with finance minister designate Mohamed Amin Adam to bring the Ghanaian economy to sound footing. Well, he's not the minister designate, he's actually the finance minister.
Looking ahead, steadfast policy and reform implementation will be needed to fully and durably restore macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability in Ghana. It will be critical for the government to continue implementing the program as envisaged to ensure sustainable growth and poverty reduction. With respect to some of the questions regarding other developments, I just want to emphasize that the IMF remains fully engaged and supportive of Ghana's efforts under the ongoing program and the debt restructuring negotiations. We have been in continuous dialogue with the Ghanaian authorities, including with the minister designate when he served as Minister of State for Finance. And our commitment to assisting Ghana remains steadfast, and we look forward to continuing our fruitful cooperation with the new minister.
Well, let me engage a former finance minister, Seth Tekpe. Thankfully, joins us on the line. He's been there, done that. We'll also join on the phone shortly a professor of finance at the University of Ghana, Professor Godfred Bokping. Is this issue really about our engagement with the IMF? Is it personality driven, or is really about the policy and what it is that we are doing? Is it centered around the persons or the personalities involved in this? Mr. Seth Tekpe, thank you so much for joining us here on News tonight. So really, how does it work? How seamless will it be for Finance Minister, the new Finance Minister, Amin Adam, to take over from where his former boss left off? Is it really about the personality or really our engagement with the IMF in itself?
Yeah, MFA, thank you very much. Let me state that for me, the focus is on where we are now. And it's clear from the IMF that they expected to do more. Those interviews started to emerge, those views from the IMF, about 4 of them in the last 2 weeks or so, started to emerge when we started talking about changes, to the tax regime. The IMF program is heavily focused, on, revenue performance because it's not too strong. on the expenditure side. And that is why there seems to be some alarm. But even if we come to personality or policy, MFR, what has that given Ghana? Did you notice that the president, all of a sudden, with due respect, was comparing his record with his record? No longer the record of President Mahama, as used to be the case. No longer the pontification that they were doing well. In any event, who brought the economy to that point in 2022 with the deficit financing and all that? Before it seems to be going down now, the record is clear that we have had the wet, revenue has been stagnant despite 3 oil fields. Expenditure ballooned, resulting in a huge deficit, the largest in Ghana since the 1980s. We have defaulted. That's what we should be focusing on, and what I was expecting. Now, the former minister has been made an envoy. Mm-hmm. It took us a year to do the domestic debt restructuring. We do not know the full terms, of the bilateral restructuring, which should come back to Parliament. Remember, that it's an external debt. As we speak, with him in charge or without, we have not been able to even penetrate the initial negotiations with the commercial creditors. These are the things which one expected, the president, to address with respect to the way forward. Mm. Yes, personalities, maybe, could be important. And the positions are also important, because the question is, when discussions are held in the Ministry of Finance, elevated to the office of president, that is where the advisor is now. And that is where your question becomes, relevant. Mm-hmm. Because the president ultimately has to take a recommendation. But I think we should be able to assess this when we do the third review, which will be coming soon, following the second review, or when, since it's also an external envoy, when we continue with the negotiations, particularly with the commercial creditors, then we'll be able to assess. And let me mention, by the way, that during our time, if you remember, Dr. Butchie chaired, the discussions with the IMF, but ultimately the Memorandum of Understanding and that's the MEFP and the letter of intent were prepared and signed by the Minister for Finance, and the governor, as it has always been. And in Washington, it is the two which led the discussions and the negotiations. So I would say that, with respect to, very important personalities on either side participating in the reform process, I wouldn't fault that. But we are talking about, people with a record, which has led the country to its needs, relying on only, treasury bills to finance government is also tenable. And it doesn't matter whether the treasury bill rate is going down. It doesn't matter whether inflation has been trending downwards. The record is that this is the only government that took inflation to 50%, and that would never be obliterated. Okay. This is the only government that did deficit financing, totaling the entire deficit, amount. And this is the only government that has defaulted in our history.
Well,
that said, that record is there, and that is what we should be preoccupied with.
Well, that said, Mr. Tekpe, it must be refreshing to hear, in your own words, that the president was comparing his own record with that of his own record, and not the case that we've heard over the period with the previous administration.
That's what we want to
But
ask.
really, there's also an admission of responsibility, mentioning that the buck stops with him. That's commendable, isn't it?
The president. This is the last State of the Nation address. The president is supposed to be giving a record of his, if not 7, getting to 8 years, at least last 4 years. And this is the first time we have seen a president compare his record with his own record. Instead of going back and telling us the achievements over the 4 years, yes, he did mention some of them. Then when it came to the critical points in terms of fiscal performance, reserves, and others, did you notice that every indicator was what happened in May 2023 and what is happening now? And that means that was the worst record. And that's the point I'm making. I hope you get my point.
I truly get the point, but I was only wondering if you would not commend the president also for taking responsibility for where we are, at least. For the first time, we're hearing him say that indeed the buck stops with him.
Of course, it's diluted, I would say. And with all due respect again, because remember, the record, even after last year, and even going to the IMF program, we were being told, that is the government that has performed. And some even dared, including the vice president, compare the record of this government with those of Nkrumah all the way down and said they were performing, better. And then there was a point from Kumasi, the interviews you did. The IMF talks about, pre-existing, conditions. Most recent severe external shocks compounded pre-existing fiscal debt and vulnerabilities. And we are talking about 2020. This is a reference to COVID. But it's saying that there was something wrong with the economy in 2020. And IMF is saying it. That is before COVID. It's saying this because they corrected it in the 2019 Article 4. And we didn't. The government decided to ignore it. Even at the time they were presenting the budget. The deficit was revised to 7%. It's for 7% from 4.9. The deficit was the following year, 2019, deficit was revised. 2019 it was revised to 7.2 compared to 5.3. Debt was revised. So it is not true that the economy was on sound footing, even going, into the COVID crisis.
Okay. Mr. Tekwe, we'll have to leave it here, and the discussions have just started, and knowing that we've just heard from the president, there will be a lot of reactions going forward. But we're taking a look at the issue about personality or policy when it comes to an IMF negotiations. Briefly, we'll take a comment also from Professor Godfred Bokping, as the Professor of Finance, on this. We are grateful for your time here on Newsnight. I'm sure you've been listening to the president also. Really, your immediate reaction in terms of the admission of responsibility amongst others when it comes to the state of the economy.
Well, good evening, Emifa, and good evening to our cherished listeners. I think that's a humbling admission. I think we are happy about that. That is not to suggest that it actually relieves us of the pains and the hardship Ghanaians are going through. But Emifa, that's interesting, right? Mm-hmm. Look at it this way. The president's first of the nation address was in 2017, right? Mm-hmm. We were under an IMF program. The president's last of the nation address, we are still under an IMF program. That particular IMF program, hello?
Yes, we are listening, Professor.
That particular IMF program, we considered it to be our last, or that was going to be the last. Even when we exited that program in April 2019, we said it was going to be the last.
And that's we're not going to the IMF again, no matter what we do.
Yes, we are. So look at this country. Probably 7 years or 8 years, we have just moved from IMF to IMF. Where we pick the stone is exactly where we are placing it. In between, we've seen variations. And that is very sad for this country. And I hope that we will learn useful lessons from this, that there is one thing having good intention. There's another thing having the courage and the will to translate that good intention into accomplishment. On the substantive issue, mm-hmm. I don't think that a change of personality would necessarily affect the IMF program.
Okay.
The former finance minister had said that the program that he implemented, he was not even the one who led the negotiation. It was Professor Kwesibotri who led the negotiation, and it was Honorable Sekwe who started the implementation. To even make it more interesting and why the personality came for me is immaterial is that the government that negotiated that program had to give way to another new government altogether. And when the NPP took over in January 2017, they had to find their way around it. And the fund worked with the NPP, and they will work with the new finance minister. They will work with the government. Overall, the arrangement with the government of Ghana. So the personality change necessarily will not derail the program. If you look at the way the program is structured, in fact, it's actually bigger than the finance minister. It's bigger than the finance minister. Okay, and I don't think that the finance minister, even if Ken were to be there, it will make any particular difference necessarily. So I think that let's not major on the minor. I think let's make progress. The most important thing is that if you look at the characteristics of the IMF program that the current president inherited, it's not so different from the characteristics of the current program we are implementing.
Okay.
So what progress have we made structurally, transformationally in the past 7 years or so? And bear in mind, MFA, I've gone back to look at the State of the Nation address the president gave in 2017. And I've looked at the one he gave in 2018, and I'm comparing it to the one he gave in 2024. You will feel sorry for this country.
Well, Prof, we are grateful, and definitely, like I said, the discussions have just begun, and the reactions to this particular State of the Nation address delivered by President Akufo-Addo is on from the Super Morning Show tomorrow all the way till the debate begins in Parliament. We're there for you. And George Riafe has been monitoring closely. You heard everything you wanted to hear?
Interesting development, and still on the economy, still want to see what is up next, and what government is going to do to firmly stabilize the economy. So, some stalled projects financed by external creditors moved onto Government of Ghana budget to fast-track its completion. And Bank of Ghana reviews balance and transaction limits of customers of mobile money wallet effective this Friday, March 1, 2024, allowing persons to hold as much as 75,000 Ghana cedis under some conditions. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, Syntax Tanks and Pepsodent, Charcoal and Herbal. Let's now settle for the details. Now, some of the stalled projects financed by external creditors have been moved on to Government of Ghana's budget to fast-track its completion. Several infrastructure projects across the country have been put on hold due to delays in financing or reaching a deal with external creditors. But in the State of the Nation address, President Akufo-Addo noted that this should help deliver these projects on time.
We're committed to concluding the external debt restructuring process as soon as possible, so we move past the crisis. This will enable us to complete substantially projects that have been constrained due to financial challenges. In the meantime, some of the priority projects have been transferred onto the GOG budget with the same fiscal space to ensure their completion. This will enable the Kumasi International Airport, some 98% complete, to be completed by May. Other projects like the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital, CAD, Maternity Block in Kumasi, the Takoradi Interchange, the Beche-Bilamti Interchange in Accra, the University of Environment Sustainable Development Project at Bunso in the Eastern Region, Phase 2 of the construction of roads in Tamale, and the construction of the 84-kilometer railway line between Tema and Nakosombo would also be completed.
And that is President Akufo-Addo. Let's get some reactions on his address. And first, let's hear from economist Dr. Patrick Usumi, who argued that government should be measured about its expectation on the ongoing negotiations with external creditors.
The president and the former finance minister and the government has actually been more optimistic than they should be. You've seen that at every stage, they have gone ahead of themselves to announce timelines, and those timelines actually don't materialize. I think I take the president as saying he's expressing just a hope, because these are going to be very complex negotiations. These are not negotiations that we control. These are probably going to be more long and drawn out compared to what we've had with the bilateral creditors. These are commercial partners, ours. So I think it's good that we don't try and put too much timeline on it and just go into the negotiation with good faith.
And that is economist Dr. Patrick Sim. Let's hear the thoughts of the Association of Ghana Industries. And here is this Greater Accra Regional President, Chona Makpelu.
Well, it's generally a welcome news, especially at a time where we've had incidents of instability in the supply of power to industry. 30% of the entire industrial activities is heavily dependent on power. And so power remains a significant component of the entire industrial chain. And with these incidents of instability in power supply, it affects significantly results, i.e. the production process. And so it's been a major concern industry have been facing, and it's been a major concern that we continually engage government on, so that for the president to assure us of a future of a more stabilized power regime can only be a welcome news. We only hope and pray that.
And that is the Chona Makpelu. He is Greater Accra Regional President of the Association of Ghana Industries, reacting to the president's argument that they've made some significant progress in terms of supply of power for the country. The Bank of Ghana has revised the balance and transaction limits of customers of mobile money wallet effective March 1, 2024. Statement from the Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications explained that the development is in line with the increasing trend of transactional activities and involving customer needs. There is more in this report.
On daily transaction limits, customers with a minimum account, which initially had a limit of 2,000 cedis, has been upgraded to 3,000 cedis, while medium account with a current limit of 10,000 cedis has been increased to 15,000 cedis. In the same line, an enhanced account with a 15,000 cedis threshold has been reviewed to 25,000 cedis daily. On maximum accounts, a minimum account which initially had a limit of 3,000 cedis has been reviewed to 5,000 cedis, while medium account with a current limit of 25,000 cedis has been increased to 40,000 cedis. The enhanced account with a 50,000 cedis threshold has been reviewed upwards to 75,000 cedis. On the breakdown of the review of monthly transaction limits, minimum accounts, which initially had a limit of 6,000 cedis, has been reviewed to 10,000 cedis. The medium account, which had no limits on the value of monthly transactions, remains unchanged, as well as the enhanced account, which had no limits on the value of monthly transactions, remains unchanged.
And that is a Business Desk report. Now, the Controlling Accountant General Kwesi Koni-Bosompem says that there is bemoaned the slow pace of growth recorded in Ghana's public financial management journey. According to him, there's a need for the country to manage the transition of governments when it comes to public finances. He was speaking at the ACCA Public Financial Management Focus Group Dialogue.
One main issue we should avert our minds to is how well we have to manage the transition from one government to another regarding important PFM reforms initiatives that are ongoing. One major factor to slow pace of PFM reforms achievement in Ghana is that important ongoing initiatives more often than not suffer slow progress or sometimes a complete stoppage after a change of government. This is a key national challenge we should all work together to address as government on one side and as professional accountants.
And that is the Controller and Accountant General Kwesi Koni-Bosompem. To other news, and Finance Director of Guinness Ghana Breweries, Justin Molly, says that the African Continental Free Trade Area will serve as a strategic opportunity to enhance operations across the continent. He spoke on the sidelines of Guinness Ghana Media Forum held in Accra today.
Currently, we source some of ingredients and raw and packaging materials from different parts of Africa. I mean, we have sourcing options in Nigeria, Egypt, Morocco, South Africa, and some parts of other East African countries. But it requires a bit of some work that the Secretariat needs to formalize to be able to start enjoying some of these benefits that comes in with free movements of goods and services across board.
And that you hear from the finance director at Guinness Ghana Breweries, Justin Molly. Let's turn our attention to the stock market. And if you're a shareholder of that of Farm Milk Ghana Limited, today you lost about 5 pesos, and the share is now worth 3 Ghana cedis, 30 pesos. And that's all for Business on Newsnight. Back to you, MFA, and back to the country.
We have a short break. George, you're right back.
Ooh, things are looking up on this side.
When you upgrade to the enhanced GCB mobile app, you start doing more with ease.
Create a GCB instant account easily and conveniently with your GCB mobile app and start sending and receiving funds. All you need is your Ghana card.
Pay your bills, subscriptions, and fees to multiple merchants safe and secure.
Charlie, tap the app, open a GCB instant account, and experience the recoded vibe.
You're able to top up on all types of ECG prepaid meters with their special card readers and keep the power on. No worries, no stress.
With GCB mobile app, you can also generate prepaid and virtual cards to use on ATM machines, POS devices, and for online transactions.
Well, I pay my subscriptions and fees with my GCB mobile app conveniently.
GCB mobile app. Download now from Google Play Store or Apple Store. Upgrade your style. GCB Bank. Your bank for life.
Son, we are so proud of you for setting up this hospital. I really love those hospital beds and waiting chairs. By the way, did you import them?
No, Dad, I didn't. I actually got them from Kindle Books and Stationery right here in Ghana.
Wow. We also bought our office supplies, safes, executive desks and chairs from Kingdom, and they gave us expert advice on how to set up our office.
Guys, that makes 3 of us. I also got our sofa and bedroom sets, plus our dining hall furniture for our new home from Kingdom.
Wow, Mom, that makes 4 of us. I usually get my stationery items from Kingdom, and my teacher also mentioned that our classroom furniture was provided by Kingdom.
So there you have it. Whenever you're thinking about setting up an office or acquiring furniture for your home, etc., Kingdom Books and Stationery should be your first point of call. With over 40 years experience in the industry, we stock and supply a wide variety of globally sourced office and home furniture, stationery and equipment. Visit our head office, Osu Akwaje, or our office near the Osu Stadium. We're also in Tema Community 1, opposite Olam SHS, Kumasi KNUST campus, UCC Cape Coast, and now at the Marina Mall, Airport City. Or call us 0302 764101, 764209, or 762792. Visit our website www.kingdomgh.com.
The other day, I visited Kweku at his spunky new office to congratulate him on opening his business. And man, was I impressed. The business is just moving quick. The sales, customers, everything is just working seamlessly. The secret? He said,
it's MTN Business Broadband. In this fast-paced environment, we need fast and reliable internet to support all business types. No laggy online meetings, great download and upload speeds, impeccable business management systems, all inclusive. I mean, you can have it all.
Sharp! I signed on immediately.
To enable your business stay ahead and stay connected, make sure you're signed on to the best internet made just for businesses. MTN Business Broadband. Sign up today on broadband.mtn.com.gh and manage your account on my MTN app. Call 0244 308 111 for more information. We are good together everywhere you go.
Hello, Auntie Araba. Hey, Bugger, how are you doing today? I want to buy Pepsodent Cavity Fighter, but I don't have enough money. So what are you going to do? Can you give me the big size? You know, as for me, I'll pay the balance later. Today, no credit. I haven't sold much this morning. If you don't have enough money for the big size, why don't you try the 120-gram pack? There's a 120-gram pack? Introducing the new Pepsodent Cavity Fighter in 120-gram pack size. More affordable and convenient. Get yours today from any supermarket near you. Every smile matters. This advert is FDA approved.
Water is needed all day, all night. So, remember Syntex tank all day, all night. 7 years warranty. Select any color for free. In no de crack, in no de spoil. Call Accra on 0244 335 168. Kumasi 0505 555 666. Syntex tank. A strong, a tough. Water is needed all day, all night. So, remember Syntex tank all day, all night. 7 years warranty. Select any color for free. In no de crack, in no de spoil. Call Accra on 0244 335 168. Kumasi 0505 555 666. Syntax Tank. A strong, a tough.
Time for sports on Newsnight. Must bow.
Yes, 7-4, welcome back. I heard George mentioning that. Yeah, welcome back. Delta dollars and all of that.
My Delta experience. I'll tell you all about it later.
Yeah, you got to tell us about
what
it. We saw that you were at the game with West Ham, Brentford.
That's different.
You know, you were there and all of that.
Different.
Yeah, interesting. Good to have you back. Good to have you back. Good to have you back. Anyway, well, the president has been speaking today, and he touched a bit on sports, where he revealed plans to unveil a presidential policy on football, which is intended to address the many challenges facing the game. Now, this is coming on the back of the recent performances of the Black Stars and other national teams that have raised questions about the future of the sport in Ghana as the search for success still continues. Well, the president believes that it is time that Ghana deployed a long-term strategy to help solve the country's football problems, hence the presidential policy on football.
Speaker, I believe it is time for us to take a long-term, far-sighted approach to correct what has gone wrong. It is time to return to scouting, grooming, and developing talent at the grassroots level under a presidential policy on football that I intend to unveil very soon. The School Sports Department of the Ministry of Education will work hand in hand with the Ministry of Youth and Sports in collaboration and synergy with the Ghana Football Association to build district, regional, and national juvenile teams for both girls and boys.
So that's the president on that very presidential policy. So we look forward to that. But the Black Queens themselves, the president also, commended for their performance and, expressed support for them. Their game tomorrow against Zambia. They have held their final training session earlier today in Zambia, and the head coach of the side, Nora Hotel, has been speaking ahead of the game, expressing optimism in the team's ability to overturn the results that they got here on last Friday.
That tomorrow it's going to be a packed stadium, so we like it. We like this crowd, and I hope it will be a big football game tomorrow evening for all of us. We already adapted in mid-time in Ghana and had better grip, so we also have some plans for tomorrow, you will see. But of course, it's our approach to be stable in the game, and we need to score. We are aware of that, and you will see tomorrow on the pitch what our plans are.
That's Nora Hotel there. So we're just all supporting the Black Queens. Hopefully they're able to overturn the deficits. They just lost 1-0 last Friday against Zambia in Lusaka. It's a big one. Will they do it? We'll wait to see.
Thank you very much, Musbao. We'll watch you on Joy News Prime shortly. Now, the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD, is urging President Akufo-Addo not to assent to the anti-LGBTQI plus bill, which, when passed into law, will criminalize the promotion, advocacy, funding, and acts of homosexuality. According to the board chairperson of CDD, Professor Audrey Gajakpo, the bill, which is expected to be passed this week, would not only criminalize persons involved, but will additionally violate media and press freedom. She's been speaking at a press conference to end a day sensitization workshop for journalists on promoting human rights in Accra.
The bill will violate media and press freedoms, as it will punish any citizen who broadcasts or posts publications, stories, or reports that are said to be related to LGBTQ plus activities. Any person that uses the media to broadcast or advocate on this topic faces a prison sentence of up to 3 years. This places a heavy restriction on journalists, bloggers, influencers, and various social media users who produce or publish content, especially those who work in the field of human rights. And 8, furthermore, the bill violates Article 108 of the 1992 Constitution, which prohibits private members' bills that impose a charge on the public purse.
That's Professor Audrey Gajekpo, thankfully a proponent of the bill, Mr. Emmanuel Bedra, Member of Parliament, and he joins us, thankfully, with a brief reaction to what we've just heard from the CDD by Professor Audrey Gajekpo. Mr. Bedra, thank you so much for your time here on Newsnight. We were hoping that this bill would have been passed last week. We're hoping it will be done this week. But you've been hearing Professor Gajekpo. He's asking the president not to assent to it, among others. Your initial reaction?
Thank you very much, MFR, and good evening to your charity listeners and viewers. MFR, every Ghanaian has the right, constitutional right, either to speak to the president or write to the president not to assent. And so we do not begrudge Professor Gajekpo, neither do we begrudge CDD. I believe that we live in an environment that is governed by our culture, our norms, and our ancestral beliefs, religious beliefs as well. And if a country that does not have rules and regulations that governs that country, the country or members of citizens in that country can do anything that they want. And so the members of parliament, especially the 8 of us, thought that this is going too far, especially when it comes to the issues of LGBTQ community. And so we need to regulate the activities, and not only regulating the activity of those who are in that community, but as many people who believe in them, who propagate them, and who even finance them. We need to regulate them by coming out with this bill. Okay. And so for CDD to go to the president or write to the president that he should not assent to it, it's neither here nor there. We don't begrudge them at all.
Okay. Mr. Bedra, we are grateful for your time here on Newsnight. And just before we head out, we know there's a petition, or should I say a communication, from the office of the NDC's presidential candidate to the party, and announcing a choice of a running mate. James Aveji has a copy of that communication from the party. We're told that the National Executive Committee will be meeting shortly. James, briefly, what's in there?
Yes, MFA. So as you said, this is in relation to the running mate nomination of his, the flag bearer's nomination of his running mate. The NDC says in accordance with their Article 45. They said in response to this communication, the party is pleased to announce that a meeting of the Council of Elders will conceive at 11 o'clock a.m. on Thursday, March 7, 2024, to deliberate on the matter. Subsequently, the National Executive Committee will gather at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the same day to further consider the nomination. They are promising that they believe the running mate that will be announced by former President John Mahama will bring a wealth of experience, expertise, and dedication to the campaign of the party as they commit to building the Ghana that we want.
And the names that have come up so far?
Yes, we've been picking some 4 names. The Agbogu Mafia for the Asogli State, Toby Apede is in there. We have the former finance minister, Kwabena Dufo is in there. Former chief of staff, Julius Debra is also there, as well as the female candidate, Professor Jenana Opogwajiman.
Okay. Well, in the coming days, we'll talk more about this particular running mate choice, and who would it be remains the key question. We'll get to find out. But it's time for the Geek Squad, and you're here in the studios. It's no longer Peps.
Adobea.
Adobea Papebi. Really, what are we talking about tonight?
Starting a podcast in Ghana.
Oh, wow.
Are you interested?
Yes, I'm very much interested.
Please stay tuned, because we have some interesting podcasters who will be with us to share their journey and give us a guide.
Need to start.
Exactly.
We can't wait.
Yes.
Adobea, exciting Geek Squad.